He disgusted me. I never wanted to share the same stage with him again. Those words, whispered behind closed doors, carried the weight of one of Hollywood's greatest legends, Marlon Brando. For the public, he was a god of acting, a revolutionary force who changed cinema forever. But behind the camera, Brando's pride and temper shaped a hidden list of enemies. Famous names he swore never to work with. Why did Brando despise men who once shared his spotlight? What secrets turned admiration into hatred? How could one of the greatest actors of all time burn so many bridges in an industry built on collaboration? The truth, buried for decades, is more shocking than the films he starred in. In this story, we will uncover the rivalries, betrayals, and wounds that defined Marlon Brando's career. These aren't just old Hollywood rumors. They are scars left behind, secrets never meant to reach the audience. And as each name is revealed, the legend of Brando becomes darker, more human, and more haunting, because sometimes greatness doesn't just create fans. It creates enemies that history tried to hide. Hollywood has always been a stage of dazzling lights, but behind those lights are shadows no one dares to touch. Marlon Brando, the man who revolutionized acting, was not only a legend of cinema but also a storm that divided the industry. His enemies were not minor names. They were giants, stars adored by millions, yet despised by Brando himself. Why did he walk away from films that could have made history? What secrets forced him to refuse screen legends everyone else dreamed of working with? These are not rumors. They are untold truths, shocking secrets buried for decades. And the deeper we go, the darker Brando's story becomes. But it's number 3 that truly exposes the cracks. A conflict so bitter it nearly broke Hollywood apart. Stay until then, because you won't believe who made it to Brando's blacklist. If you love discovering the untold, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join the community uncovering the mysteries of old Hollywood. Welcome to Hollywood Hidden Stories, and this is Top 6 People Marlon Brando Refused to Work With, Hidden Stories You Never Knew. Number 1, Frank Sinatra. In the golden haze of the 1950s, Hollywood celebrated Frank Sinatra as more than a singer. He was the smooth-voiced chairman of the board, an Oscar-winning actor, and the very definition of American cool. At the same time, Marlon Brando had risen as the raw, rebellious force who shattered traditional acting with his brooding intensity. On paper, pairing the two together was a dream. Two giants, one film, a spectacle that audiences couldn't resist. But behind the camera, the dream became a battlefield. Sinatra loved efficiency, a man who delivered lines in one clean take and despised wasting time. Brando was the opposite. Methodical, absorbed, rehearsing endlessly to capture every hidden layer of a character. Their worlds collided on the set of Guys and Dolls in 1955. Sinatra would later confess to a close friend, "I can't stand that guy. He mumbles his way through scenes like he's half asleep." The main conflict boiled over when Brando was cast in the role Sinatra wanted. For a man as proud as Sinatra, it was humiliation. Brando didn't hide his disdain either. He dismissed Sinatra as nothing more than a singer trying to act, mocking his lack of depth. One evening, after a tense rehearsal, Brando allegedly mimicked Sinatra's mannerisms so cruelly that the crew fell silent. It wasn't playful. It was venom. Then came the shocking detail that turned whispers into legend. During filming, Sinatra reportedly referred to Brando not by name, but by the nickname Mumbles. The word stuck, haunting Brando for the rest of his career. Behind closed doors, Brando retaliated, saying Sinatra had no soul, that he was all surface, no depth. Their feud became so toxic that Sinatra vowed never to appear in the same project again, and Brando agreed. The consequences rippled far beyond Guys and Dolls. Directors knew that hiring one meant losing the other. Studios weighed the risk carefully. Both men went on to achieve greatness, but the bridge between them was burned forever. In Brando's world, Sinatra was the embodiment of everything false in Hollywood: fast, shallow, commercial. And for Sinatra, Brando was a symbol of arrogance, the man who ruined a film with his endless experiments. She sings to the crowd, he whispers to himself, and they never met again. Number 2, Charles Bronson. In the gritty world of Hollywood's 1960s and 1970s, Charles Bronson was a different kind of star. He was the tough guy, the face of vengeance, the man whose silence carried more weight than words. From The Magnificent Seven to Death Wish, Bronson embodied the hardened masculinity that audiences adored. He was not polished like Sinatra, nor mercurial like Brando. He was steel, built on discipline and an unflinching screen presence. Yet when the idea surfaced of pairing him with Marlon Brando, it was as though oil and water were about to collide. Brando, the method actor, thrived on inner storms. Bronson, the craftsman of violence and restraint, delivered his roles with brutal efficiency. On set proposals, producers dreamed of a film uniting their strengths. But Brando's reaction was cold and cutting. He reportedly said, "I don't wrestle with stone, I act." He flexes. The emotional anchor lies in Bronson's own quiet frustration. An associate remembered him muttering, after learning Brando had rejected the project, "He thinks I'm beneath him. Maybe I am, but I still work." It wasn't an explosion. It was resignation, tinged with bitterness. For a man like Bronson, pride was hidden, but wounds cut deep. The main conflict centered around a proposed Western in the early 1970 CS. The studio wanted Brando and Bronson to headline together, believing the contrast between Brando's brooding sensitivity and Bronson's cold steel would electrify the screen. But Brando refused before negotiations even began. He claimed Bronson had no layers, no poetry, just fists. The dismissal stung. In an industry where reputation was everything, Brando had branded Bronson as second-rate. Then came the shocking detail. During a private dinner with executives, Brando reportedly tore up a draft of the script in front of everyone, saying, "If he's in, I'm out. Hollywood doesn't need two cavemen in the same film." The gesture, exaggerated and theatrical, left the room silent. Word of it spread quickly, reducing Bronson to whispers in corridors. The man Brando humiliated without even sharing a frame. The consequences were lasting. Bronson carried on with his own brand of cinema. Gritty, violent, box office gold. But he never shook off Brando's shadow. In interviews, critics often compared the two, Brando the artist, Bronson the brute. Their paths never crossed again, and perhaps that was the silent wound Bronson bore to his grave. Brando's rejection had not ended his career, but it had defined the way Hollywood perceived him, powerful but never profound. He carried a gun on screen, Brando carried silence, and silence was the deadliest weapon of all. Number 3, Clint Eastwood. By the late 1960s, a new icon had risen in Hollywood. Clint Eastwood, with his piercing gaze and clenched jaw, had conquered the spaghetti westerns and transformed into America's new face of rugged independence. Audiences worshipped his silence, his squint, his trigger finger. He wasn't just an actor. He was the symbol of a new masculine myth. For studios, the prospect of pairing him with Marlon Brando was irresistible. Two titans, two legacies, one film destined for glory. But Brando saw something entirely different. To him, Eastwood was not a peer, but a caricature. An insider recalled Brando's words, laced with disdain. "He doesn't act, he just gnashes his teeth." Brando, the method revolutionary, viewed Eastwood as hollow, a man elevated not by art but by image. It was a judgment as brutal as it was final. The main conflict erupted when Warner Bros. Proposed a modern Western, envisioning Brando as the tortured outlaw and Eastwood as the relentless lawman. Contracts were drafted, meetings were held, and anticipation rippled through Hollywood. Yet Brando refused, tearing the project apart before cameras could roll. For him, sharing the screen with Eastwood was not collaboration, it was contamination. Contamination. Then came the shocking detail that still lingers in Hollywood lore. During a heated studio negotiation, Brando allegedly pulled out a magazine cover featuring Eastwood in full cowboy gear. Holding it up for the room, he sneered, "This is a puppet, not an actor. You want art, you don't hire mannequins." The insult cut through the air like a blade. Eastwood never responded publicly, but those close to him said the words reached him, and he never forgot them. The consequences were seismic. The film collapsed, depriving audiences of what could have been a legendary clash on screen. Eastwood went on to direct and star in his own masterpieces, proving himself as more than Brando's caricature. But the scar remained, an unspoken rivalry between two men who never shared a frame. For Brando, rejecting Eastwood was more than personal taste. It was a statement. Hollywood might worship heroes, but he would never bow to them. Drew his gun for the camera. Brando drew blood with his words, and sometimes words kill faster. Before we move on, tell us what you think. Was Brando right to dismiss Clint Eastwood as shallow, or was it jealousy of a rising star who threatened his throne? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you love uncovering these untold rivalries, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hollywood Hidden Stories. We have many more secrets to reveal, and the next name will shock you even more. Number 4. Richard Burton. In the glamorous 1960s, Richard Burton reigned as one of Britain's finest exports to Hollywood. With his Shakespearean voice, commanding presence, and his fiery marriage to Elizabeth Taylor, Burton was both actor and spectacle. He moved effortlessly from theater to cinema, dazzling audiences with performances that seemed to echo from the very soul of stage tradition. To many, pairing him with Marlon Brando, America's greatest rebel, seemed like destiny. Two geniuses, two philosophies, one screen. But destiny never came. Beneath the polished headlines was a rivalry born of mistrust and contempt. Brando looked at Burton and saw a man enslaved by excess. He dismissed him as a drunkard with a stage voice. Burton, on the other hand, never forgot Brando's refusal to acknowledge him as an equal. "He treats me like a clown," Burton once confided bitterly after a failed studio approach. The main conflict ignited in the late 1960s, when a producer floated the idea of casting Brando and Burton as adversaries in a political thriller. Brando recoiled instantly. He argued that Burton could not be trusted, too erratic, too dependent on the bottle. Meetings stalled. Burton reportedly arrived late to a private dinner with the studio, visibly intoxicated, giving Brando all the justification he needed to walk away. Then came the shocking detail. According to an insider, Brando once told a director, "If Burton's on set, hide the liquor or you'll never finish the film." The remark circulated quickly, cementing Burton's reputation as unreliable. Brando's dismissal wasn't just personal, it damaged Burton's standing in Hollywood. Studios grew wary of pairing them, and Burton's opportunities to work with Brando vanished forever. The consequences were tragic. While Burton delivered acclaimed performances, his battles with addiction haunted his career and relationships. Brando, for all his flaws, carried the air of control, even arrogance. By refusing to work with Burton, he reinforced the narrative that Burton was an unstable genius, a man whose brilliance was drowned in whiskey. Their paths diverged, Brando into legend, Burton into a cautionary tale. Played kings, the other played gods, but gods never drink with kings. And we're only halfway through Brando's blacklist. If these rivalries surprise you, just wait for the next revelations. Make sure you're subscribed to Hollywood Hidden Stories, because the next names will take us even deeper into the shadows of Hollywood's golden age. Number 5. Al Pacino. In 1972, The Godfather reshaped the very DNA of Hollywood. Marlon Brando's performance as Don Vito Corleone was already hailed as mythic before the film even finished its run. Yet at the heart of this masterpiece was another story, one hidden in the quiet rise of a young actor named Al Pacino. To audiences, Pacino's transformation into Michael Corleone was shocking, but to Brando, it was a casting mistake he never fully accepted. The halo of that moment, the coronation of a new star, was darkened by Brando's skepticism. He reportedly told a confidant, "He's too small, too soft. The role will swallow him alive." Pacino later admitted that those doubts weighed heavily on him. He was not only fighting for the role, he was fighting for respect from the man he considered a god. The main conflict erupted in the earliest days of filming. Francis Ford Coppola believed in Pacino so fiercely that he threatened to quit if the studio forced him to recast. Brando disagreed. On set, he gave little encouragement, often withholding the generosity he showed to other actors. Crew members remembered a chilling rehearsal when Brando folded his arms and refused to engage with Pacino, murmuring, "When he grows up, then I'll act with him." That shocking detail spread like wildfire among the cast. Pacino, humiliated yet defiant, buried himself deeper into Michael's cold transformation. The distance between actor and character blurred. Some insiders later suggested that Brando's rejection helped fuel Pacino's icy performance, giving Michael his haunted stillness. The consequences echoed for decades. Pacino proved Brando wrong, delivering a performance now regarded as one of the greatest in cinema history. He silenced the critics, secured his place among Hollywood's elite, and built a legacy all his own. Yet he and Brando never shared the screen again. Their relationship remained fractured, a silence heavy with unspoken wounds. Built an empire on screen, Brando dismantled his faith off it, and in the end, neither man reached for the other again. Number 6, Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was more than a star. She was Hollywood's eternal queen. With violet eyes that hypnotized the world and a career lined with Oscars, jewels, and scandals, she ruled both the screen and the headlines. Every producer dreamed of pairing her with Marlon Brando, the ultimate king of method acting. Together, they could have been a cinematic dynasty, a partnership written in gold. But for Brando, Taylor represented everything he despised. In private conversations, he allegedly dismissed her as a face, not a soul. He admired her beauty, yes, but beauty meant little to a man who searched obsessively for depth. To him, Taylor was the embodiment of Hollywood's obsession with glamour over truth. The main conflict arose in the late 1960s, when MGM proposed a sweeping historical epic designed as a vehicle for both Brando and Taylor. The project had the makings of a legend, Brando as a war-torn general, Taylor as the tragic queen. Yet Brando refused outright. Insiders reported that he scoffed at the idea, claiming Taylor lacked the dramatic weight to stand alongside him. "She plays costumes, not characters," he allegedly sneered. The shocking detail came during a private meeting with studio executives. According to one account, Brando tossed a script across the table and remarked, "You can dress her in diamonds, but she'll never shine where it matters." The insult struck deep, for Taylor was not only a global icon, but also an actress fighting to be taken seriously. The rumor spread quickly, tarnishing what could have been the most glamorous screen pairing of its time. The consequences were profound. Taylor went on to headline Cleopatra and other epics, cementing her legend, but she and Brando never crossed paths on screen. Their careers ran parallel, like two blazing comets that never collided. For Hollywood, it was a missed opportunity. For Taylor, it was a wound, a rejection by the man considered the greatest actor of his generation. And for Brando, it was yet another bridge burned in his relentless pursuit of authenticity. He wore crowns on screen, he stripped them away off screen, and their kingdoms never touched. In The Restless 1950s, James Dean emerged like a comet across the Hollywood sky. With just 3 films, East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant, he defined a generation. His vulnerability, his rage, His wounded beauty captured the spirit of youth in rebellion. To many, Dean was the natural heir to Marlon Brando, a torchbearer of the raw, method-driven intensity that Brando had ignited. But for Brando, Dean was no heir. He was an imitator. In interviews, Brando reportedly dismissed him as a boy copying my mannerisms. Their encounters were tense, loaded with unspoken rivalry. Dean idolized Brando, even calling him for advice, but Brando often refused to answer. Once, when Dean showed up at Brando's home uninvited, Brando allegedly shut the door in his face. The rejection was both personal and symbolic. The main conflict surfaced when Warner Brothers floated the idea of casting them together in a 1950s drama about generational conflict. Insiders imagined the spectacle: Brando, the disillusioned veteran; Dean, the rebellious son. It could have been electric, but Brando refused before the script was even finalized. He told colleagues, "I won't share the screen with someone trying to be me." The shocking detail whispered through Hollywood's back rooms. During a late-night party, Brando reportedly told a friend, "If I act with him, people won't see me. They'll see two James Deans, and one is enough." It was a remark sharp as glass, cutting Dean's ambitions and confirming the rumor that Brando not only dismissed him, but feared being eclipsed. The consequences were sealed by tragedy. Dean died in a car crash in 1955 at just 24 years old. The world mourned him as a fallen icon, frozen in youth. Brando, meanwhile, lived on, carrying the shadow of the man he refused to acknowledge. Some critics later argued that Brando's rejection deprived cinema of a legendary pairing that might have defined an era. Others suggested Brando's hostility was born from insecurity, the fear of being replaced by someone who mirrored his own fire too perfectly. He lived fast and died young. Brando lived long but killed the bond before it was born. 6 names, 6 rivalries, 1 truth. Hollywood is not only a kingdom of dreams but also a battlefield of egos. Marlon Brando stood at the center of it all, a man who redefined acting while refusing to bend to anyone's will. His brilliance illuminated the screen, but his pride cast long shadows over relationships that could have changed cinema forever. Perhaps Brando was right to guard his art so fiercely. Perhaps he was wrong, letting arrogance steal from him collaborations that might have become immortal. What remains undeniable is the paradox of his legacy. He gave the world unforgettable performances while leaving behind unforgettable grudges. The silence between Brando and Sinatra, the humiliation of Pacino, the rejection of Taylor, the cold dismissal of Dean. Each story reveals a man both larger than life and painfully human. Brando's enemies were not accidents of fate. They were choices. Choices that revealed as much about him as any role he played. Hollywood remembers him as a genius, but history also remembers the walls he built, the bridges he burned, and the names he erased from his stage. So now the question turns to you. Who do you think carried the deepest scar from Brando's rejection? Was it Sinatra, the rival crooner? Pacino, the rising heir? Or James Dean, the fallen star who never had the chance? If you want to keep uncovering the untold, subscribe to Hollywood Hidden Stories, where the glamour fades and the truth finally speaks. Because every legend hides a secret, and we're here to reveal it.